The rain fell like tiny needles against Rebecca Williams' face as she pressed herself against the cold glass doors of the Silicon Valley Convention Center. Inside, hundreds of people in expensive suits discussed million-dollar deals while she sat on the wet concrete, her stomach cramping from hunger. Her fingers traced the cracked screen of an old laptop, her only remaining possession from a life that felt like someone else's dream. 3 months ago, she had been Dr. Rebecca Williams, lead software engineer at Technova Industries. 3 months ago, she had a corner office, a six-figure salary, and respect. Now she was invisible, another homeless person that successful people stepped around without seeing. The irony wasn't lost on her. She could hear fragments of conversations about coding problems she could solve in her sleep, algorithms that had once made her famous in tech circles. But pride was a luxury she could no longer afford, and shame had become her constant companion. As conference attendees walked past her, chatting about revolutionary AI projects and breakthrough software, Rebecca clutched her laptop tighter and wondered if she would ever find her way back to the world she once belonged to. Rebecca Williams pulled her thin jacket closer as another group of tech executives walked past her, their voices carrying excitement about the latest innovations being discussed inside the convention center. She had been sitting outside for 3 hours now, watching her former colleagues enter the building through glass doors that might as well have been prison bars. The laptop in her arms felt heavier with each passing minute. It was a 7-year-old machine, battered and held together with electrical tape, but it contained years of her work coding projects, algorithms, and software designs that had once earned her recognition in the tech world. Now it was just another piece of her broken life. She remembered the exact moment everything fell apart. The company restructuring at Technova Industries had eliminated her department overnight. Her supervisor, Jennifer Martinez, had delivered the news with practiced sympathy, explaining that her position was no longer financially viable. The severance package seemed generous at first, enough to last a few months while she searched for new opportunities. But the tech industry moved fast, and 3 months without a job meant her skills were already considered outdated. Younger graduates with fresher knowledge flooded the market, willing to work for less. Her savings disappeared quickly, first the apartment, then the car, then everything else. Pride had kept her from asking for help until it was too late. Now she sat on cold concrete, watching the life she used to live continue without her. The conference badge around her neck was fake, a laminated piece of paper she had created to look official from a distance. Security rarely checked closely, assuming anyone near the building belonged there. The rain intensified, and Rebecca moved closer to the building's overhang. A group of women her age walked by, discussing their company's latest projects. She recognized the language, the technical terms that had once rolled off her tongue effortlessly. Her fingers itched to join their conversation, to contribute something meaningful. Instead, she remained silent and invisible. A security guard approached, his expression stern. "Ma'am, you can't loiter here. This is private property." Rebecca's heart sank. She had been careful to stay out of the way to not draw attention. "I'm sorry, I was just waiting for someone." The guard's eyes swept over her appearance, the worn clothes, the old laptop, the desperation she couldn't quite hide. "You need to move along. There's a shelter about 6 blocks north if you need somewhere to go." Heat flooded her cheeks. Even trying to maintain her dignity, she was still just another homeless person to be moved away from respectable society. She gathered her belongings and stood slowly, her legs stiff from sitting on the cold ground. As she walked away from the building, Rebecca heard laughter from inside the convention center. The sound felt like a knife twisting in her chest. These people were living the life she had worked so hard to build, discussing problems she could solve, celebrating successes that felt like distant memories. She found a bus stop 3 blocks away and sat down heavily. The bench was wet, but everything was wet now. Her clothes, her laptop bag, her spirit, all soaked through. She pulled out her phone, an ancient device that barely held a charge, and scrolled through job listings she had already applied to dozens of times. Senior software engineer, must have current experience with latest frameworks. She didn't have access to the latest anything. AI specialist, looking for innovative thinkers with cutting-edge skills. Her skills were buried under months of rejection and self-doubt. Junior developer, perfect for recent graduates. At 42 she wasn't recent anything. A bus pulled up and the driver looked at her expectantly. Rebecca patted her pockets, knowing she didn't have fare money. She shook her head and the bus drove away, leaving her alone at the stop. The rain began to ease, but the damage was done. She was soaked, cold, and running out of options. Her phone battery showed 15%, enough for maybe 2 more job applications before it died. The library wouldn't open until morning, and the homeless shelter the security guard mentioned probably had a waiting list. Rebecca opened her laptop despite the dampness in the air. The screen flickered to life, showing lines of code from her last project at Technova. She had been working on a machine learning algorithm designed to predict market trends. The code was elegant, efficient, and months ahead of anything she had seen in job postings. But elegance didn't pay for food or shelter. Innovation didn't matter if no one would give her a chance to prove herself. She was trapped in a cycle. She needed a job to afford the resources to get a job, but couldn't get a job without those resources. As evening approached, Rebecca made her way toward the shelter the guard had mentioned. The streets were quieter now, the successful people safe in their homes and offices. She walked slowly, dragging out the journey, because arriving at the shelter would make her situation more real. 3 months ago she had given presentations to rooms full of executives. She had solved problems that made companies millions of dollars. She had been respected, valued, important. Now she was just another statistic, another person who had fallen through the cracks of a system that rewarded youth and connections over experience and talent. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm her, a small part of Rebecca's mind continued working on the coding problems she had overheard at the convention center. Her brain couldn't stop analyzing, optimizing, solving. It was who she was even when everything else had been stripped away. She didn't know it yet, but that unstoppable analytical mind would soon change everything. Michael Thompson stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, watching the rain streak down the glass. Below, the city of San Francisco stretched out like a circuit board, thousands of lights representing thousands of lives he would never touch. But the one life that mattered most to him was becoming increasingly unreachable. His reflection stared back from the window, a man in his 30s with prematurely gray hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. The suit was perfectly tailored, the watch expensive, the office spacious enough to hold a small apartment. From the outside, Michael Thompson appeared to have everything. The appearance was a lie. "Mr. Thompson?" His assistant's voice came through the intercom. "The development team is ready for the 5 o'clock meeting." Michael glanced at his desk, where printouts of code and error messages covered every surface. For 3 weeks, his team of 15 programmers had been stuck on the same problem. The artificial intelligence project that would revolutionize personal computing hung in the balance, and they were no closer to a solution than when they started. "Tell them I'll be right there," he replied, straightening his tie. The meeting room was filled with some of the brightest minds in Silicon Valley. Stanford graduates, MIT alumni, programmers who had helped build the foundations of modern technology. They all looked exhausted. "Status report," Michael said, taking his seat at the head of the conference table. James Chin, his lead developer, pulled up lines of code on the wall display. "We're still hitting the same bottleneck. The AI keeps generating infinite loops when processing complex emotional data. We've tried 17 different approaches and each one fails at the same point." Michael studied the code, recognizing the elegant structure even as he saw the fatal flaw. The problem was like a knot that tightened every time they tried to untangle it. "What about the quantum computing approach Sarah suggested?" "Dead end," replied Dr. Lisa Park, their AI specialist. "The processing requirements would make the system commercially unviable. We need something more efficient, more intuitive." The room fell silent. Michael could feel the weight of expectations pressing down on him. Thomson Technologies had grown from a garage startup to a billion-dollar company in just 8 years, largely due to his ability to see solutions others missed. But this problem felt different. It wasn't just technical, it was personal. The AI system they were developing was designed to provide emotional support and guidance, particularly for children dealing with trauma. Michael had poured his heart and fortune into the project because he desperately needed it to work. Not for the company, not for the investors, but for Lucy. His 8-year-old daughter had barely spoken since her mother died in a car accident 6 months ago. The bright, curious girl who used to fill their house with laughter had become a ghost, moving silently through rooms and responding to questions with nods or head shakes. Every therapist they had consulted said the same thing: she needed time, patience, and love. But time was the one thing Michael felt running out. "Sir?" James was looking at him expectantly. Michael realized he had been staring at the code without seeing it. "Let's table this for tonight. Fresh perspectives tomorrow." The team filed out, leaving Michael alone with his thoughts and the impossible problem. He gathered the printouts and headed for the elevator, dreading the drive home to another silent dinner with Lucy. The penthouse was exactly as the interior designer had left it, perfect, cold, and empty of warmth. Lucy sat at the kitchen island, picking at a sandwich their housekeeper had prepared. She didn't look up when Michael entered. "How was school today?" he asked, settling onto the stool beside her. Lucy shrugged, taking a tiny bite of her sandwich. "Mrs. Patterson says you scored perfectly on your math test." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Another shrug. Lucy's eyes remained fixed on her food. Michael felt his chest tighten. Before the accident, Lucy would have bounced in her seat while telling him about her day. She would have shown him her test, explained every problem, asked him to help with homework that was far too easy for her brilliant mind. Now she was disappearing a little more each day. "I was thinking we could work on that robot kit this weekend," he said, trying to keep his voice light. "You remember the one we started building before?" He stopped himself before finishing the sentence. "Before Mom died. Before everything changed. Before their family broke apart." Lucy finally looked at him, and for a moment, he saw a flicker of interest in her brown eyes. Then it faded and she slid off the stool. "I have homework," she said quietly, the first word she had spoken to him in 2 days. Michael watched her walk toward her room, her small figure almost swallowed by the vast hallway. The penthouse had seemed perfect when they bought it, plenty of space for a growing family, views of the bay, every luxury imaginable. Now it felt like a museum where they were both exhibits, looking but not touching, existing but not living. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found Dr. Morrison, Lucy's therapist. The call went to voicemail as it often did in the evenings. "Dr. Morrison, it's Michael Thompson." Lucy had another quiet day. "I know you said to give her space, but I'm worried about how withdrawn she's becoming. Could we schedule another session this week? I'm willing to try anything." After ending the call, Michael returned to the kitchen and opened his laptop. The code problems that had stumped his team stared back at him, but his mind kept wandering to Lucy. The AI they were developing could help millions of children like her, but only if they could solve the fundamental flaw in its emotional processing. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was trying to build artificial intelligence that could understand and respond to human emotions, but he couldn't reach his own daughter. His company specialized in connecting people through technology, but he had never felt more isolated. Michael worked late into the night, running simulations and testing theories. Each failure brought him closer to a terrible realization: he might have to shut down the project. The investors were getting restless and his team was burning out. Without a breakthrough soon, years of work and millions of dollars would be wasted. More importantly, Lucy would continue slipping away from him. As he finally closed the laptop and headed toward his bedroom, Michael paused outside Lucy's door. Soft light showed under the gap and he could hear the faint sound of typing. She was probably working on a school assignment or playing an educational game. Lucy had always been drawn to computers and puzzles. He knocked gently. "Lucy? Everything okay?" "Fine, Daddy," came her muffled reply. It was the most she had said to him all week, and he felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Maybe tomorrow he would find a way to reach her, both as a father and as the creator of technology designed to heal broken hearts. He didn't know that tomorrow would bring an encounter that would change everything for both of them. The morning sun struggled through gray clouds as Michael Thompson walked toward the Silicon Valley Convention Center. The AI and Future Technology Conference was typically one of his favorite events, a chance to network with industry leaders and showcase Thompson Technology's latest innovations. Today, however, he attended out of desperation rather than enthusiasm. His phone buzzed with another text from James Chin. Still no progress on the emotional processing algorithm. Team morale is low. Need direction. Michael typed back quickly, "Keep trying different approaches. I'll be back this afternoon." The conference hall buzzed with excitement. Vendors demonstrated cutting-edge technologies while attendees networked over coffee and pastries. Michael moved through the crowds mechanically, his mind focused on the impossible problem that threatened to destroy months of work. During a break between presentations, he stepped outside for fresh air. The rain had stopped, but puddles reflected the overcast sky. He pulled out his phone and called his lead programmer. "James, I've been thinking about the infinite loop problem," Michael said, pacing near the building's entrance. "What if we're approaching this wrong? Instead of trying to process all emotional data simultaneously, maybe we need to create a hierarchical system that prioritizes certain emotional responses." "We tried that," James replied, his voice tired. "The system still crashes when it encounters conflicting emotional inputs. It's like asking a computer to divide by zero, the logic breaks down." Michael ran his hand through his hair in frustration. There has to be a solution. Emotional intelligence isn't some mystical concept. It follows patterns, and patterns can be coded. "Maybe we're missing something fundamental," James suggested. Some aspect of human emotion that we don't understand well enough to replicate. Emotions aren't magic, Michael said, his voice rising slightly. They're neural responses to stimuli. Chemical reactions. If we can map the human genome, we can certainly create an algorithm that processes emotional data. A soft voice interrupted his conversation. Excuse me, I couldn't help overhearing. Are you talking about the recursive loop problem in emotional AI processing? Michael turned to see a woman standing nearby, her appearance immediately telling a story of hardship. Her clothes were clean but worn, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She held an old laptop against her chest like armor. Despite her obvious circumstances, her eyes held intelligence and something else, recognition. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, she continued quickly. I used to work on similar problems. Michael's business instincts kicked in. This woman was clearly homeless, probably hoping for money or a job. He started to politely dismiss her when something in her expression stopped him. She wasn't looking at him with the desperation he had come to recognize in people who wanted something. Instead, she was looking at him like she understood his problem. James, let me call you back, he said into the phone before addressing the woman. I'm sorry, what did you say your name was? Rebecca Williams, she replied, extending her hand with surprising confidence. I'm a software engineer. Well, I was a software engineer. Michael shook her hand, noting the firm grip and the way she met his eyes directly. Michael Thompson. Thompson Technologies. What do you know about emotional AI processing? Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. You're the Michael Thompson? I've followed your company's work for years. The predictive analytics platform you developed revolutionized customer service automation. Her knowledge was specific and accurate, not the generic praise he typically heard at networking events. Thank you. So you mentioned the recursive loop problem? I heard you talking about infinite loops when processing conflicting emotional inputs, Rebecca said, her voice growing more confident. I've actually worked on that exact issue. The problem isn't in the processing power or the algorithm structure. It's in the foundational assumption. Michael felt a flicker of interest despite his skepticism. What assumption? You're trying to process emotions like data points, but emotions aren't binary. They're not even linear. A person can feel happy and sad simultaneously, proud and ashamed, love and anger. The AI crashes because you're asking it to resolve contradictions that don't need resolution. She was right. The insight was so simple and obvious that Michael felt embarrassed for missing it. So instead of trying to resolve conflicting emotions, you create a multidimensional emotional matrix, Rebecca finished. Let the AI hold contradictory feelings without forcing a resolution, just like humans do every day. Michael stared at her, his mind racing through the implications. This approach could solve not just the infinite loop problem but several other issues his team had encountered. That's brilliant. Why haven't I seen your work published? Rebecca's confidence wavered, and she looked down at her laptop. I've been between positions lately. Haven't had access to proper research resources. The euphemism wasn't lost on Michael. He looked at Rebecca more carefully, seeing past the worn clothes to the brilliant mind underneath. Would you be willing to explain this approach in more detail? My team has been stuck on this problem for weeks. Of course, Rebecca said, her face lighting up. Do you have somewhere we could sit? I have some notes on my laptop that might help. Michael glanced back at the convention center, then at his watch. The next presentation didn't start for 40 minutes. There's a coffee shop across the street. My treat. As they walked toward the cafe, Michael found himself genuinely curious about this woman who had casually solved a problem that had stumped his entire team. Where did you work before? Your approach suggests significant experience with AI development. Technova Industries, Rebecca replied. I led their machine learning division for 6 years. Specialized in predictive algorithms and behavioral modeling. Michael knew Technova well. They had been a respected mid-sized company until their acquisition and subsequent restructuring 8 months ago. Many talented engineers had been displaced during that transition, but most had found new positions quickly. The fact that Rebecca hadn't suggested either bad luck or something more complicated. They settled into a corner booth at the coffee shop, and Rebecca opened her laptop. Despite its age and obvious wear, the machine booted up quickly. Michael noticed the desktop was meticulously organized, with folders labeled in a logical hierarchy that spoke to an orderly mind. Here, Rebecca said, opening a document filled with code and diagrams. This is the emotional matrix framework I developed. Instead of trying to process emotions sequentially, It creates parallel processing streams for each emotional component. Michael leaned forward, studying the code. It was elegant, efficient, and revolutionary. The approach would not only solve their current problem but potentially unlock entirely new possibilities for AI development. "This is incredible work," he said honestly. "How long did it take you to develop this?" "About 2 years of research and testing," Rebecca replied. "I never got to implement it fully because the company restructuring happened before we could move to production." Michael looked up from the screen to find Rebecca watching him carefully. Her expression held hope mixed with caution, as if she was afraid to believe this conversation was really happening. "Rebecca," he said slowly, "how would you like to come work for Thomson Technologies?" Rebecca's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "I said I'd like you to come work for Thomson Technologies," Michael repeated, pulling out his business card. "Your emotional matrix framework could be exactly what we need to complete our current project." Rebecca set down her cup with shaking hands. 3 months of rejection, of being invisible, had made her forget what it felt like to be valued for her skills. "Mr. Thompson, I appreciate your interest, but you should know that my current situation is complicated." "You mean you're homeless?" Michael said matter-of-factly. Heat flooded Rebecca's cheeks. She had hoped her appearance wasn't that obvious, that maybe she could maintain some dignity during this conversation. "Yes," she said quietly. "That doesn't change the quality of your work," Michael replied. "I'm more interested in what you can do than where you're sleeping tonight." Rebecca looked up at him, searching for signs of pity or condescension. Instead, she found genuine respect and something else, urgency. "Why are you willing to take a chance on me?" Michael leaned back in his chair, his expression growing serious. "Because I'm desperate. My team has been stuck on this problem for weeks and we're running out of time. More importantly, this project is personal for me." "Personal how?" Michael hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "My daughter lost her mother 6 months ago. Since then she's barely spoken, barely engaged with the world. The AI we're developing is designed to provide emotional support for children dealing with trauma. If we can't solve the processing problem, the project dies and Lucy continues to slip away from me." Rebecca felt her heart clench. She understood loss, understood the way grief could make a person disappear inside themselves. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you. The point is, I need this project to work and you've just provided the breakthrough we've been searching for. So yes, I'm willing to take a chance on you, but honestly, I think you'd be taking a bigger chance on me." Rebecca's mind raced. This was the opportunity she had dreamed about during countless sleepless nights in shelters and on park benches. But years of rejection had taught her to be cautious. "What exactly are you offering?" "Full-time position as senior AI developer. Competitive salary, full benefits, stock options. We'll start you immediately today if you're willing." The offer was generous beyond her wildest hopes, but Rebecca forced herself to think practically. "I don't have professional clothes or a permanent address or—" "We'll figure out the logistics," Michael interrupted. "Thomson Technologies has corporate housing available for relocating employees. You can use that until you find a permanent place. As for clothes, there's a shopping center near our offices. Consider it an advance on your salary." Rebecca stared at him, hardly believing this conversation was real. "You're serious?" "Completely serious. My team meeting starts in 2 hours. I'd like you there to explain your approach." 2 hours? Rebecca's voice cracked slightly. Too fast. She thought about the shelter where she had slept last night, about the job applications that had gone unanswered, about the slow erosion of her self-worth over the past 3 months. Then she thought about Michael's daughter, a little girl lost in grief, and about the technology that could help her heal. "No," she said firmly. "Not too fast. I accept your offer, Mr. Thompson. With gratitude." Michael smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him. "Call me Michael. And welcome to Thomson Technologies." The next few hours passed in a blur. Michael drove Rebecca to the corporate housing complex, a modern building with furnished apartments for visiting executives and new employees. The apartment assigned to her was small but immaculate, with a full kitchen, comfortable furniture, and most importantly, reliable internet access. "Take an hour to get settled," Michael said, handing her a company credit card. "There's a shopping center downstairs with everything you need. Then meet me at the office." Rebecca stood in the middle of the apartment after he left, hardly believing her circumstances had changed so dramatically. She called the apartment manager to confirm this wasn't some elaborate mistake, then took the fastest shower of her life. The shopping trip was surreal. After months of counting every penny, having a credit card with no limit felt almost wrong. She chose conservative professional clothes, blouses, slacks, a blazer, comfortable shoes. Nothing flashy, but everything well-made and appropriate for a tech company environment. An hour later, Rebecca stood outside Thomson Technologies headquarters, looking up at the gleaming glass tower. Her reflection in the building's windows showed a professional woman in business attire, laptop bag over her shoulder, ready to contribute to something meaningful. The lobby was impressive modern artwork, comfortable seating areas, and a wall displaying the company's innovations and achievements. The receptionist directed her to the 15th floor, where Michael met her at the elevator. "You look great," he said, leading her through hallways lined with offices and conference rooms. "Ready to meet the team?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Rebecca replied, clutching her laptop. The conference room held 15 people, all looking exhausted and frustrated. Michael made introductions quickly, explaining that Rebecca had a potential solution to their processing problem. She noticed skeptical glances and whispered comments. These were accomplished programmers who had been struggling with this issue for weeks. The idea that a newcomer could solve it in an afternoon seemed unlikely. "Rebecca," Michael said, "would you explain your emotional matrix approach?" Rebecca moved to the whiteboard, her nervousness disappearing as she fell into familiar territory. "The fundamental problem you're facing is that you're trying to force emotional data into binary processing systems. But emotions aren't binary, they're multidimensional and often contradictory." She began drawing diagrams, explaining how different emotional responses could coexist without creating logical conflicts. The room grew quiet as team members leaned forward, following her reasoning. "So instead of sequential processing," she continued, "we create parallel emotional channels that can hold multiple states simultaneously. Think of it like a symphony, multiple instruments playing different notes that together create harmony, even if individual notes might seem to clash." James Chin raised his hand. "But how do you prevent the processing load from becoming exponential?" "Excellent question," Rebecca replied, turning to write equations on the board. "You use weighted priority algorithms to determine which emotional responses require immediate processing and which can run in background threads." For the next hour, Rebecca fielded questions and refined her approach based on the team's specific requirements. She could see understanding dawn on faces around the room, followed by excitement as programmers began to see possibilities they hadn't considered. "This could work," Dr. Lisa Park said finally. "This could actually work." "More than that," James added, studying Rebecca's diagrams. "This approach could revolutionize how we think about AI emotional processing entirely." Michael looked around the room at his energized team, then back at Rebecca. "How long would implementation take? With your team's expertise?" Rebecca considered the question carefully. 2 weeks for basic functionality. Another month for full optimization and testing." "Excellent. James, I want you working directly with Rebecca on this. Give her whatever resources she needs." Michael stood, his expression lighter than it had been in weeks. "People, I think we've just found our breakthrough." As the meeting ended and team members began discussing implementation details, Michael approached Rebecca. "That was impressive. You had them convinced within minutes." "Good team," Rebecca replied. "They know their stuff. This will work because they have the skills to make it work." "What about you? Are you ready for this? It's going to be intense." Rebecca thought about the past 3 months, about sleeping in shelters and being turned away from job interviews. Then she thought about Lucy, a little girl who needed this technology to help her heal, and about her own need to prove that she still had value to offer. "I'm ready," she said with conviction. She had no idea that her biggest challenges lay not in the code, but in opening her heart to the family that was about to embrace her. The corporate apartment felt like a palace after months of shelters and park benches. Rebecca sat at the small dining table, her laptop open to lines of code that were finally making sense after weeks of refinement. It was nearly midnight, but she couldn't sleep. Every algorithm she perfected brought them closer to completing the AI project, and more importantly, closer to helping Lucy. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Great work today. Team is energized. Get some rest, big presentation tomorrow." Rebecca smiled, saving her progress before closing the laptop. The past 2 weeks had been the most professionally fulfilling of her career. Working with Thomson Technologies' team felt like conducting an orchestra. Each programmer brought unique skills that harmonized perfectly with her emotional matrix framework. But it was more than just professional satisfaction. For the first time in months, Rebecca felt like herself again. She was contributing something meaningful, solving problems that mattered, using her mind in ways that made a difference. The next morning she arrived at the office early to review her presentation materials. The board meeting would determine whether Thomson Technologies moved forward with full production of their emotional support AI, or whether budget constraints would force them to shelve the project. Ready for the big day? James Chin asked, settling into the chair beside her in the conference room. I think so, Rebecca replied, connecting her laptop to the presentation system. The simulation results are solid. The AI can process complex emotional scenarios without crashing, and response times are within acceptable parameters. More than acceptable, Dr. Lisa Park added, joining them. This is groundbreaking work, Rebecca. You should be proud. Rebecca felt warmth spread through her chest. 3 months ago she had been nobody, invisible and discarded. Now her work was being called groundbreaking by some of the brightest minds in Silicon Valley. Michael entered the conference room followed by 6 board members, serious-looking men and women in expensive suits who would decide the project's fate. Rebecca's nervousness spiked as she recognized several faces from business magazines and tech industry headlines. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael began, I'd like you to meet Dr. Rebecca Williams, the architect of our breakthrough in emotional AI processing. Rebecca stood, feeling the weight of their attention. Thank you for this opportunity. What I'd like to show you today represents a fundamental shift in how artificial intelligence can understand and respond to human emotions. She clicked to her first slide, showing comparison data between their old approach and the new emotional matrix framework. Traditional AI systems process emotions as discrete data points, leading to conflicts when multiple emotions are present simultaneously. Our new approach embraces emotional complexity rather than trying to simplify it. The presentation flowed smoothly as Rebecca explained technical concepts in terms the business-focused board could understand. She showed them simulation results, processing speeds, and most importantly, real-world applications that could benefit millions of users. The target demographic for this technology, Rebecca continued, includes children dealing with trauma, elderly individuals facing isolation, and anyone who needs emotional support but can't access traditional therapy. The AI doesn't replace human connection, it supplements it. Board member Patricia Hughes raised her hand. What's the projected timeline for commercial release? 6 months for beta testing, another 6 months for full market release, Rebecca replied confidently. We're ahead of schedule thanks to the team's exceptional work. Cost projections? Asked another board member. Michael stepped forward. Development costs are lower than originally projected due to the efficiency of Rebecca's framework. We're looking at significant profit margins while keeping the technology affordable for our target users. For the next 30 minutes, Rebecca fielded questions about technical specifications, market potential, and competitive advantages. She could see interest growing on the board members' faces as they understood both the humanitarian value and business potential of the project. Thank you, Dr. Williams, Patricia Hughes said finally. Impressive work. Michael, could we have a few minutes to discuss privately? Rebecca gathered her materials and left the conference room with the rest of the team. They waited in the hallway, tension thick enough to cut. This project represented months of work for all of them, but Rebecca knew she had the most to lose. If the board rejected the proposal, she would still have a job at Thomson Technologies, but the project that had given her purpose would disappear. Whatever happens, James said quietly, you've revolutionized how we think about AI development. That doesn't change regardless of their decision. He's right, Lisa agreed. Your emotional matrix framework will influence AI development for years to come. The conference room door opened, and Michael emerged with an expression Rebecca couldn't read. He approached the group slowly, building suspense whether intentionally or not. The board has made their decision, he said, pausing dramatically. Rebecca held her breath. Full approval for production development. Budget approved, timeline approved, and... Michael's serious expression broke into a grin. They're fast-tracking the project. They want beta testing to begin in 4 months instead of 6. The hallway erupted in cheers and congratulations. Rebecca felt her knees go weak with relief and gratitude. James hugged her, Lisa shook her hand enthusiastically, and other team members patted her back. Rebecca, Michael said, pulling her aside as the celebration continued, there's something else. The board was so impressed with your work that they've approved a significant salary increase and are fast-tracking your promotion to lead AI architect. Rebecca stared at him, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept, Michael replied with a smile. The company needs brilliant minds like yours, and frankly, I need someone I can trust to lead this project. I accept, Rebecca said, her voice thick with emotion. With deep gratitude. There's one more thing, Michael continued, his expression becoming more personal. Lucy has been asking about you. She heard me talking about the brilliant woman who solved our impossible problem, and she wants to meet you. Would you be interested in having dinner with us tonight? Nothing formal, just pizza, and maybe you could show her some of the coding work you've been doing? Rebecca's heart jumped. She had been curious about Michael's daughter, the little girl whose grief had inspired this entire project. I'd love to meet her. Perfect. 7 o'clock at my place. I'll text you the address. As Rebecca returned to her desk that afternoon, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed. 2 weeks ago, she had been sitting in the rain outside this very building, invisible and forgotten. Now she was leading a revolutionary AI project, earning more money than she had ever dreamed of, and being invited into the personal life of her CEO. But more than the professional success, Rebecca felt something she hadn't experienced in months: purpose. The work they were doing would help children like Lucy process trauma and find healing. That meant more to her than any salary or promotion. She spent the rest of the day preparing for the evening, both professionally and personally. She reviewed Lucy's basic information from Michael's casual mentions: 8 years old, brilliant with computers, struggling with grief after losing her mother. Rebecca wanted to make a good impression, not just as Michael's employee, but as someone who might be able to help this little girl find her way back to joy. At 7 o'clock sharp, Rebecca stood outside Michael's penthouse, holding a small gift she had purchased during lunch, a beginner's programming book designed for children, filled with colorful illustrations and simple projects. Michael answered the door, looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him. Gone was the business suit, replaced by jeans and a casual shirt. Rebecca, welcome. Come in. The penthouse was beautiful but felt somehow cold, like a showroom rather than a home. Rebecca could see expensive furniture and artwork, but none of the personal touches that made a space feel lived in. Lucy, Michael called toward the hallway, our guest is here. A small figure appeared in the doorway, a beautiful little girl with dark hair and serious brown eyes that seemed too old for her 8 years. She stayed close to the wall, studying Rebecca with careful attention. Hi Lucy, Rebecca said gently, crouching down to the girl's eye level. I'm Rebecca. Your dad has told me so many wonderful things about you. Lucy nodded but didn't speak. I brought you something, Rebecca continued, offering the programming book. Your dad mentioned you like computers and I thought you might enjoy this. Lucy stepped forward cautiously and accepted the book, her eyes widening as she flipped through the colorful pages. Thank you, she said quietly, the first word she had spoken. You're very welcome. Maybe later if you want I could show you some of the code I've been working on. It's designed to help kids and I'd love to know what you think about it. For the first time, Lucy's serious expression softened slightly. She looked up at Rebecca with something that might have been interest. How about we eat first, Michael suggested, leading them toward the kitchen. I ordered pizza, Lucy's favorite kind with extra cheese. Dinner was initially quiet, with Lucy eating silently while stealing glances at Rebecca. But as Rebecca began talking about her work in simple, engaging terms, Lucy started to show more interest. So the computer is learning to understand feelings? Lucy asked, speaking more than she had all evening. Exactly, Rebecca replied. Just like how you can feel happy and sad at the same time, like when you remember something wonderful about someone you miss. Lucy's eyes grew thoughtful. Like how I feel happy remembering Mommy's stories, but sad because she can't tell me new ones? Rebecca felt her heart clench at the simple wisdom in Lucy's words. Yes, exactly like that. The computer is learning that it's okay to have mixed-up feelings, because that's how real people feel. That's smart, Lucy said, taking another bite of pizza. Most grown-ups want me to feel just one thing at a time. Michael looked surprised at his daughter's observation. What do you mean, sweetheart? Like, everyone wants me to be either sad about Mommy or happy about other stuff. But I can be both. Rebecca's computer understands that. Rebecca exchanged a glance with Michael, seeing the amazement in his eyes as his daughter expressed more complex thoughts than she had in months. After dinner, Rebecca kept her promise to show Lucy some of her work. They sat together at Michael's home computer, with Rebecca explaining basic programming concepts in language an 8-year-old could understand. See this part of the code? Rebecca pointed to a section of her emotional matrix framework. This tells the computer that someone can feel scared and brave at the same time. Like when I'm scared to go to sleep but brave enough to do it anyway? Lucy asked. Perfectly like that, Rebecca confirmed. You're very smart, Lucy. I think you'd be excellent at programming if you wanted to learn. Lucy beamed, the first genuine smile Rebecca had seen from her. Could you teach me? I'd love to if your dad says it's okay. Michael, who had been watching the interaction from the doorway, stepped forward. I think that's a wonderful idea. Rebecca, you've gotten Lucy talking more tonight than she has in weeks. As the evening wound down, Lucy hugged Rebecca goodbye, a spontaneous gesture that brought tears to Rebecca's eyes. Will you come back soon? Lucy asked. Whenever your dad invites me, Rebecca replied. I'm inviting you back tomorrow, Michael said immediately. And the day after that if you're willing. Walking back to her car, Rebecca felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with professional success. Tonight had been about more than coding or artificial intelligence. It had been about connection, about a little girl beginning to heal, and about her own heart opening to possibilities she hadn't dared to consider. She was falling in love, not just with the work, but with this small family that was slowly becoming whole again. 3 weeks had passed since Rebecca's first dinner with Michael and Lucy, and it had become a cherished routine. Every evening after work, she would drive to their penthouse, help Lucy with homework, and work on basic programming lessons that delighted the 8-year-old's curious mind. Tonight was different though. Lucy had specifically requested that Rebecca stay for the weekend to help with a special project, building the robot kit that had been gathering dust since her mother's death. Are you sure you want to tackle this? Michael asked as they spread the robot components across the living room floor. It's pretty complicated. I'm sure, Daddy, Lucy said with more enthusiasm than Rebecca had ever heard from her. Rebecca can help me understand the programming part and you can help with the building part. Like a team. Michael's eyes met Rebecca's over Lucy's head, and she saw gratitude mixed with something deeper, a warmth that made her pulse quicken. All right then, Michael said, settling cross-legged on the floor. Team robot building it is. The next few hours were filled with laughter, minor frustrations, and small victories. Lucy proved to have excellent spatial reasoning skills, while Rebecca handled the programming logic and Michael managed the mechanical assembly. They worked together seamlessly, each contributing their strengths. Look! Lucy exclaimed as the robot took its first wobbling steps across the floor. We did it. We actually made it work. She threw her arms around both adults, pulling them into an awkward but wonderful group hug. Rebecca felt tears prick her eyes as she realized this was what family felt like, not the cold perfection of the penthouse's original design, but the warm chaos of people working together toward a common goal. You know what? Michael said as they watched the robot navigate around furniture. This place finally feels like home. That evening, after Lucy had gone to bed clutching the robot's remote control, Michael and Rebecca sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with the satisfaction of a day well spent. Thank you, Michael said quietly. For what? For giving me my daughter back. She's been more herself these past few weeks than she has since. He trailed off, but Rebecca understood. She's an amazing kid. She was always herself. She just needed someone to meet her where she was instead of trying to pull her back to where she used to be. Michael turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. Is that what you did? Meet her where she was? Rebecca considered the question carefully. I think I recognized something in her that I understood from my own experience. When you lose everything that defined you, you have to figure out who you are in the empty space that's left. Lucy was doing that work and she needed adults who could be patient with the process. You're talking about more than just Lucy, aren't you? Rebecca nodded. 3 months ago I lost my job, my home, my sense of self-worth. I had to rebuild from nothing. In some ways Lucy and I were both starting over. And now? Rebecca looked out at the city lights, thinking about how dramatically her life had changed. Now I have work I love, a purpose that matters, and... She paused, unsure how to finish the sentence. And a family that I never expected to find, she said softly. Michael reached over and took her hand. Rebecca, there's something I need to tell you. These past few weeks, watching you with Lucy, working with you, getting to know you, I've started to have feelings that go beyond professional respect or friendship. Rebecca's heart began to race. She had sensed the growing connection between them but hadn't dared to hope it was mutual. I know the situation is complicated, Michael continued. You work for my company, you've become important to Lucy, and I don't want to make things awkward if you don't feel the same way. Rebecca turned to face him fully. Michael, I need you to know that I would never do anything to hurt Lucy or compromise my work. But if you're asking whether I have feelings for you, the answer is yes. Strong feelings. Relief flooded Michael's face. So what do we do about it? We take it slow, Rebecca said practically. We make sure Lucy is comfortable with any changes. We keep our professional and personal lives separate at work. And we see where this leads us. Michael smiled, lifting her hand to his lips to place a gentle kiss on her knuckles. "I'd like that very much." The next morning, Rebecca woke up on the guest room bed feeling more hopeful than she had in years. She could hear voices from the kitchen, Michael and Lucy discussing breakfast plans. "Is Rebecca staying for pancakes?" Lucy was asking. "If she wants to," Michael replied. "But we should let her decide what she wants to do today." Rebecca smiled, pulling on her robe and heading toward the kitchen. "I want pancakes," she announced, making Lucy giggle. "Yeah. Daddy makes the best pancakes. Well, except when he burns them." "I only burned them once," Michael protested, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. "3 times, Lucy corrected. "But they still tasted good." As Rebecca watched Michael flip pancakes while Lucy set the table, she felt a deep sense of belonging. This wasn't the life she had planned, but it was better than anything she could have imagined. After breakfast, Lucy asked if Rebecca would help her create a simple computer program, something she could show her class for the upcoming science fair. "What kind of program?" Rebecca asked as they settled at the computer. "Something that could help other kids who feel sad sometimes," Lucy said thoughtfully. "Like a friend computer that understands when you have mixed-up feelings." Rebecca's breath caught. Without realizing it, Lucy had just described a simplified version of the emotional support AI they were developing at Thomson Technologies. "That's a beautiful idea, Lucy. Let's start with something simple, a program that lets you pick different emotions and shows that it's okay to feel more than one thing at a time." They spent the morning coding together, with Lucy asking insightful questions and contributing creative ideas. Rebecca was amazed by the child's natural aptitude for logical thinking and problem-solving. "Look, Daddy," Lucy called when Michael joined them. "I made a program that helps kids understand their feelings." Michael studied the simple but elegant interface Lucy and Rebecca had created. "This is incredible, sweetheart. You're a natural programmer. Rebecca taught me. She says programming is like giving instructions to a really literal friend who needs everything explained clearly." "That's exactly right," Michael said, his eyes meeting Rebecca's with admiration. That afternoon, while Lucy napped with her robot beside her, Michael and Rebecca talked about their growing relationship and how to navigate the complexities ahead. "I want to be completely transparent with HR about our relationship," Michael said. "No secrets that could compromise either of our positions." "Agreed. And I think we should talk to Lucy about what's happening between us. She's smart enough to sense changes and she deserves honesty. How do you think she'll react?" Rebecca considered the question carefully. "I think she'll be happy. She's already treating me like family. But we should let her set the pace for how she wants things to change." That evening, they sat Lucy down for a gentle conversation about feelings and families and how sometimes people who care about each other decide to spend more time together. "So Rebecca might come over even more?" Lucy asked. "Would that be okay with you?" Michael asked. Lucy looked thoughtful for a moment, then broke into a smile. "Can she help me with more programming projects?" "Absolutely," Rebecca laughed. "Then yes, it's okay. I like Rebecca. She makes you smile more, Daddy. And she makes me feel like my mixed-up feelings are normal." As Rebecca tucked Lucy into bed that night, the little girl looked up at her with serious eyes. "Rebecca? Are you going to stay with us for a long time?" Rebecca's heart swelled with love for this brave, wise child. "I'd like to stay for a very long time if you and your daddy want me to." "We want you too," Lucy said confidently. "You make our family better." Walking back to the living room, Rebecca realized that Lucy was right. They did make each other better, not by fixing what was broken, but by creating something new and beautiful from the pieces of their separate lives. 2 months had passed since Rebecca officially became part of Michael and Lucy's daily life. The penthouse that had once felt like a cold showroom now buzzed with warmth and activity. Lucy's artwork covered the refrigerator, programming books filled the shelves, and the sound of laughter echoed through rooms that had been silent for too long. This morning was special, Lucy's science fair, where she would present the emotion recognition program she had developed with Rebecca's guidance. "I'm nervous," Lucy admitted as Rebecca helped her get dressed in her best outfit. "What if the judges don't understand my project?" "Then you'll explain it to them," Rebecca said, straightening Lucy's collar. "You know your program better than anyone. Just tell them why you created it and how it works. The passion in your voice will convince them." "But what if I forget something important?" Rebecca knelt down to Lucy's eye level. "Lucy, do you remember why we started this project? To help kids understand that having mixed-up feelings is okay." "Exactly. And do you believe that's important?" Lucy nodded firmly. "Then trust yourself. When you talk about something you believe in, the right words always come." Michael appeared in the doorway, adjusting his tie. He had insisted on taking the morning off to attend Lucy's presentation, despite having 3 important meetings scheduled. "Ready, science fair champion?" he asked, scooping Lucy into a hug. "Daddy, I'm not a champion yet," Lucy giggled. "You're already a champion to me," Michael replied. "Both of my girls are." Rebecca felt her heart skip at the casual way he had included her in his definition of family. Over the past few months, such moments had become natural, but they still filled her with wonder. The elementary school gymnasium buzzed with excitement as families gathered around colorful display boards showcasing student projects. Lucy's booth was near the center, her computer program running on a borrowed laptop while her hand-drawn posters explained the concepts behind emotional recognition software. "Remember," Rebecca whispered as the judges approached, "just be yourself." Lucy straightened her shoulders and smiled as the first judge, Mrs. Patterson, stopped at their booth. "Good morning, Lucy. Can you tell me about your project?" "I made a computer program that helps kids understand their feelings," Lucy began, her initial nervousness disappearing as she warmed to her topic. "Sometimes grown-ups think kids should only feel one thing at a time, but that's not how feelings really work." She clicked through her program, showing how users could select multiple emotions and receive encouraging messages about the complexity of human feelings. "For example," Lucy continued, "if someone picks sad and grateful at the same time, the program says something like, 'It makes sense to feel sad about missing someone and grateful for the happy memories they gave you. Because that's how real feelings work.'" The judge's eyebrows rose in surprise. "This is quite sophisticated thinking for a third grader. Did you have help developing this concept?" "My friend Rebecca taught me about programming and my daddy helped me understand computers. But the idea came from me because I know what it's like to have mixed-up feelings." Mrs. Patterson looked impressed. "Can you show me how the program works?" For the next 10 minutes, Lucy demonstrated her creation with confidence and enthusiasm. She explained the logic behind her coding choices, described how she tested different scenarios, and articulated her vision for how the program could help other children. "Excellent work, Lucy," the judge said finally. "This shows real understanding of both technology and human psychology." After the judges moved on, Michael hugged his daughter tightly. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You were amazing. I couldn't have done it without Rebecca teaching me to code, and you helping me understand how computers think," Lucy said. "And I couldn't have taught you anything if you weren't so smart and curious," Rebecca added. "This project succeeded because you cared about helping other kids." As they waited for the results, Lucy dragged them around the gymnasium to see other projects. She asked thoughtful questions about volcano models and plant growth experiments, showing genuine interest in her classmates' work. "She's really something special," Michael said quietly to Rebecca as they watched Lucy engage with other students. "She gets that from her father," Rebecca replied. "The curiosity, the kindness, the ability to see solutions where others see problems. And from you she's learned that it's okay to be complicated, to have feelings that don't fit into neat categories. That's a gift, Rebecca. You've given her permission to be human." When the announcement came that Lucy had won first place in the elementary division, she jumped up and down with excitement before running to hug both adults. "We won. We won." "Well, I won, but we all worked on it together." The 3 of them stood together as Lucy received her blue ribbon, and Rebecca felt tears of pride and joy streaming down her face. This wasn't just about a science fair victory, it was about a little girl who had found her voice again, who had channeled her own healing into something that could help others. That evening they celebrated with Lucy's favorite dinner and a special dessert. As Lucy showed off her ribbon to anyone who would listen, Michael pulled Rebecca aside. "There's something I want to talk to you about," he said, his expression serious but not worried. "What is it?" "Lucy asked me something today that I wasn't sure how to answer. She wanted to know if you were going to be her new mom." Rebecca's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that was something the 3 of us would need to talk about together when the time was right. But Rebecca, I need you to know that if that conversation ever happens, my answer would be yes. You're not replacing her mother, you're giving her something new and different and beautiful." Rebecca felt overwhelmed by the depth of emotion in his words. "Michael, I love Lucy like she's my own daughter. These past few months have shown me what I've been missing my whole life. I never thought I'd have a family and now you do," Michael finished. "Whatever form that takes, however we decide to make it official, you're already family to us." Later that night, as Rebecca tucked Lucy into bed, the little girl looked up at her with sleepy eyes. "Rebecca? Today was the best day ever." "It was pretty wonderful," Rebecca agreed. "I'm so proud of how you presented your project. I mean the whole day. Having you and Daddy there together, feeling like we're a real family. That was the best part. Rebecca kissed Lucy's forehead gently. Sweet dreams, brilliant girl. Sweet dreams, Aunt Rebecca. Or, Lucy paused thoughtfully. Maybe someday it won't be Aunt Rebecca anymore. As Rebecca turned off the light and closed the door, she realized that Lucy was right. Someday, if they were very lucky, she might get to be something even more wonderful than Aunt Rebecca. She might get to be Mom. The Thomson Technologies conference room was packed beyond capacity. Word had spread throughout Silicon Valley about the revolutionary emotional AI that was about to enter beta testing, and industry leaders had flown in from across the country to witness the official demonstration. Rebecca stood at the front of the room, her hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. 6 months ago, she had been homeless and forgotten. Today, she was about to unveil technology that could change how artificial intelligence interacted with human emotion forever. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael began, addressing the crowd of investors, journalists, and tech executives. 6 months ago, Thomson Technologies faced an impossible problem. Our artificial intelligence system could process data, recognize patterns, and solve complex problems, but it couldn't understand the one thing that makes us most human: our emotions. He gestured toward Rebecca. Dr. Rebecca Williams joined our team and revolutionized our entire approach. Today you'll see the first public demonstration of our emotional intelligence support system, designed specifically to help children and adults process complex feelings. Rebecca stepped forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her. What you're about to see isn't just advanced programming, it's a new way of thinking about how technology can support human emotional health. She clicked to her first demonstration, showing the AI interface that she and Lucy had refined together. Traditional AI systems try to categorize emotions into simple, discrete states. Our system recognizes that real human emotions are complex, contradictory, and often beautiful in their messiness. The demonstration began with a simulated conversation between the AI and a young user dealing with grief. Rebecca had programmed multiple scenarios based on her observations of Lucy's healing process, creating responses that acknowledged the complexity of loss while providing gentle support. Notice how the AI doesn't try to fix or minimize the user's feelings, Rebecca explained as the conversation unfolded on the screen. Instead, it validates the experience and offers coping strategies that respect the individual's emotional journey. Dr. Sarah Chin, a prominent child psychologist in the audience, raised her hand. How does the system prevent users from becoming dependent on artificial rather than human support? Excellent question, Rebecca replied. The AI is designed to encourage real-world connections. It regularly suggests reaching out to family members, friends, or professional counselors. Think of it as emotional first aid rather than long-term therapy. She clicked through several more scenarios, showing how the AI adapted its responses based on user age, cultural background, and specific traumatic experiences. The audience watched with growing amazement as the system demonstrated unprecedented emotional sophistication. The applications extend far beyond individual therapy, Rebecca continued. Schools could use this technology to help students process difficult experiences. Senior centers could provide emotional support for elderly individuals facing isolation. The possibilities are limitless. James Chin, who had become one of Rebecca's closest collaborators, stepped forward to address technical questions about processing power and implementation costs. Dr. Lisa Park explained the rigorous testing protocols they had developed to ensure the AI's responses were therapeutically sound. But it was Lucy's involvement that truly captured the audience's attention. This project succeeded because we had an expert consultant, Michael said, his voice warm with pride. My 8-year-old daughter Lucy helped us understand what children actually need from emotional support technology. Rebecca clicked to a video of Lucy explaining her contributions to the project. On screen, the confident, articulate girl bore little resemblance to the withdrawn child Rebecca had first met. I helped test the computer to make sure it understood that kids can feel lots of different things at the same time, Lucy said in the recording. Like how I can miss my mom but still be excited about learning to code. The computer learned that both feelings are okay. The video showed Lucy interacting with the AI, demonstrating how naturally children could engage with technology that met them at their emotional level. Her ease with the system and her insightful feedback had been crucial to the final product's development. When the formal presentation ended, the room erupted in applause. Journalists crowded forward with questions while investors discussed licensing opportunities and implementation timelines. Dr. Williams, called a reporter from TechCrunch, this technology could revolutionize mental health support. What's next for Thomson Technologies? We begin beta testing with select schools and counseling centers next month, Rebecca replied. Our goal is to refine the system based on real-world feedback before the official launch later this year. What about commercial applications? Asked a venture capitalist. Michael stepped in to field business questions while Rebecca continued explaining technical aspects to the gathered scientists and engineers. She found herself energized by their enthusiasm and challenged by their thoughtful questions. Dr. Martinez from Stanford's AI Ethics Institute approached her during a break. Dr. Williams, I have to ask, how did you develop such insight into emotional processing? This work suggests deep understanding of psychological healing. Rebecca considered her answer carefully. I think the best technology comes from real human experience. The team and I drew from our own encounters with loss, recovery, and growth. You can't program empathy, you can only translate authentic understanding into code. As the crowd began to thin, Patricia Hughes, the board member who had championed the project, approached Rebecca with a broad smile. Congratulations, Dr. Williams. The board is extremely pleased with today's results. We'd like to discuss expanding your role to head our new emotional AI division. Rebecca felt a rush of professional satisfaction. I'd be honored to consider it. Think it over. We're talking about significant resources, your own research team, and the opportunity to shape the future of therapeutic technology. After the last attendees departed, Rebecca found herself alone in the conference room with Michael, James, and Lisa. The four of them had worked tirelessly for months, and the successful demonstration felt like a victory for the entire team. We did it, James said, still sounding slightly amazed. We actually did it. Rebecca did it, Lisa corrected. We just helped her brilliant vision become reality. Michael looked at Rebecca with an expression of deep admiration and something more personal. You've exceeded every expectation I had when I offered you that job 6 months ago. We all exceeded expectations, Rebecca replied. This project succeeded because everyone contributed their best work toward a goal that mattered. As her colleagues gathered their materials and prepared to leave, Michael lingered behind. Dinner tonight? He asked. I think this success deserves celebration. Absolutely. Lucy will want to hear about every detail of the presentation. She's already planning a celebration dinner. Apparently, she's been researching recipes for fancy food that smart people eat. Rebecca laughed, imagining Lucy's earnest attempts at sophisticated cuisine. I can't wait to see what she comes up with. Walking toward the elevator together, Rebecca reflected on how much her life had changed. 6 months ago she had been defined by loss and failure. Today she was a recognized leader in cutting-edge technology, surrounded by colleagues who respected her work and a family that loved her. But more than professional success, she had found purpose. The AI system they had created would help thousands of children process difficult emotions and find healing. Lucy's journey from withdrawn grief to confident joy had become a template for helping other children navigate their own emotional challenges. As they stepped into the elevator, Michael took her hand. I'm proud of you, Rebecca. Not just as your CEO, but as someone who loves you. I'm proud of us, she replied. All of us. We've built something beautiful together. The elevator doors closed, carrying them toward home and the celebration dinner that awaited. Rebecca knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a family, supporting each other through the complex, contradictory, and ultimately beautiful experience of being human. Spring had arrived in San Francisco, bringing warmth and new possibilities. Rebecca stood on the balcony of the penthouse, watching Lucy practice coding on her tablet in the garden below. 6 months of healing had transformed the little girl into a confident, joyful child who approached life with curiosity and resilience. She's remarkable, Michael said, joining Rebecca at the railing with 2 cups of coffee. She always was remarkable. She just needed time to remember it herself. Michael set his coffee aside and turned to face Rebecca fully. I've been thinking about what Patricia Hughes said about expanding your role. Are you interested in heading the new division? Rebecca considered the question. The opportunity was tremendous, her own research team, unlimited resources, the chance to shape the future of therapeutic AI. But it would also mean longer hours, more travel, and less time with the family that had become her world. I want to do it, she said finally. But only if I can structure it to maintain balance. Lucy is about to start 4th grade, and I don't want to miss the important moments. That's one of the things I love about you, Michael said softly. You've achieved incredible professional success, but you never lose sight of what really matters. The word love hung in the air between them. They had been dancing around deeper feelings for months, but neither had spoken the words aloud. Rebecca felt her heart race as she met Michael's eyes. "Rebecca, there's something I need to tell you," Michael continued, his voice serious but warm. "These past 6 months have been the happiest of my life. Not just because of your professional contributions, but because you've brought joy back to our family. You've made us whole again." "Michael, please let me finish. I know this is complicated, we work together, you've become Lucy's trusted adult, and we've all been through so much. But I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just friendship or professional respect." He took her hands in his. "I'm in love with you, Rebecca. Completely, deeply, permanently in love with you. You've changed everything for us, and I can't imagine our lives without you." Rebecca felt tears spring to her eyes. "I love you too, Michael. I've been afraid to say it because I didn't want to complicate what we've built, but I love you and Lucy more than I thought it was possible to love anyone." Michael's face broke into a radiant smile. "Really? Really? You saved my life when you offered me that job, but you both saved my heart by making me part of your family." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly against his chest. "So what do we do now?" "Now we figure out how to move forward together. As a real family." "Speaking of which," Michael said, pulling back slightly, "there's something else we need to discuss. Lucy has been dropping hints about wanting to make our family official. She asked me last week when you were going to become her real mom." Rebecca's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that was a conversation the three of us needed to have together. But Rebecca, if you're open to it, I'd like to ask you to marry me. Not just because Lucy wants it, but because I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Before Rebecca could respond, Lucy's voice called from the garden below. "Rebecca. Daddy. Come see what I programmed." They hurried downstairs to find Lucy beaming with pride beside her tablet. On the screen was a simple animation of 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall figure labeled Daddy, a medium figure labeled Rebecca, and a small figure labeled me. "I made a family program," Lucy announced. "It shows how we all fit together perfectly." Michael and Rebecca exchanged a meaningful look over Lucy's head. "Lucy," Michael said gently, "Rebecca and I have been talking about our family too. How would you feel if we made it official? If Rebecca became your stepmom?" Lucy's eyes went wide with excitement. "Really? Rebecca would really be my mom?" "If she says yes," Michael replied. Lucy turned to Rebecca with hopeful eyes. "Would you want to be my mom? For real?" Rebecca knelt down to Lucy's level, her heart overflowing with love. "Lucy, being part of your family has been the greatest joy of my life. I would be honored to be your mom." Lucy threw her arms around Rebecca's neck. "Yes, yes, yes. We're going to be a real family." "We already are a real family," Rebecca said, hugging the excited girl. "This just makes it official." That evening, after Lucy had gone to bed clutching a notebook full of wedding plans she had immediately begun creating, Michael and Rebecca sat together on the couch, finally able to speak freely about their future. "Are you sure about this?" Michael asked, taking Rebecca's hand. "Marriage, becoming Lucy's stepmom, taking on the new division, it's a lot of change all at once." "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," Rebecca replied. 6 months ago I had nothing. Now I have everything I never knew I wanted. A career that matters, a man I love, and a daughter who has taught me what unconditional love really means." "She adores you." "Sometimes I think she loves you more than she loves me," Michael said with a laugh. "She loves us both but differently. You're her daddy, her anchor, her security, her first love. I'm something new, a friend who became family, someone who chose to love her. Both kinds of love are important." Michael lifted her hand to his lips. "I don't have a ring yet. I wanted to make sure you said yes before I went shopping. I don't need a ring to know how I feel. But Lucy might have opinions about the wedding plans. She's already talking about flowers and cake flavors." "Speaking of Lucy," Michael said, his expression growing thoughtful, "there's something I want to discuss with you. I've been thinking about adoption." Rebecca's heart skipped. "Adoption? If you're comfortable with it, I'd like you to legally adopt Lucy after we're married. Her biological mother will always be her mom, but you've become her mother in every way that matters. I think it would mean a lot to her to have that recognized officially." Tears filled Rebecca's eyes. "Michael, I would love nothing more than to adopt Lucy. To be her mom in every legal sense." "Good, because I already mentioned the possibility to her, and she's been researching adoption procedures on her tablet. Apparently there's paperwork involved." Rebecca laughed through her tears. "Of course she's been researching it. That's our girl." Over the next few weeks, their lives took on a dreamlike quality as they planned for their future together. Rebecca accepted the promotion to head Thomson Technologies' emotional AI division, with the understanding that family time would remain a priority. Michael began working with architects to redesign the penthouse, creating spaces that reflected their blended family rather than a bachelor pad with guests. Lucy threw herself into wedding planning with characteristic enthusiasm, creating detailed lists of everything from flower arrangements to menu options. She insisted on being involved in every decision, treating the wedding as a family project rather than just an adult celebration. "I think we should have the ceremony in the garden," Lucy announced one evening, spreading her latest sketches across the dining table. "That way the AI robot can be there too." "The AI robot?" Rebecca asked, confused. "The first robot we built together. It should be at the wedding because that's when we became a real family." Michael and Rebecca exchanged amused glances. Lucy's logic was uniquely her own, but her sentiment was perfect. The wedding planning also provided opportunities for deeper conversations about their future. Rebecca had never imagined herself as a mother, but watching Lucy grow and learn filled her with protective love and fierce pride. Michael had worried about finding someone who could love his daughter as much as he did, but Rebecca's devotion to Lucy exceeded even his hopes. One evening as they tucked Lucy into bed, she looked up at them with serious eyes. "Are you nervous about getting married?" she asked. "A little," Rebecca admitted. "It's a big change for all of us. But good changes can be scary too," Lucy said wisely. "Like when I started talking again after Mommy died. I was scared people might not like what I had to say." "And what did you discover?" Michael asked. "That people like me even more when I was brave enough to be myself. I think you and Rebecca are being brave by getting married. And I like you even more for it." After Lucy fell asleep, Rebecca and Michael sat in their home office, surrounded by wedding plans and work projects that somehow seemed to blend seamlessly together. "I keep thinking about what Lucy said," Rebecca mused. "About being brave enough to be ourselves. A year ago I was too scared to ask for help when I lost everything. Now I'm brave enough to build a new life with you." "A year ago, I was too scared to let anyone get close to Lucy or me," Michael replied. "We were both protecting ourselves from more loss. But love requires courage. And we have that now. All three of us." Michael pulled her closer. "I love you, Dr. Rebecca Williams, soon to be Thomson. I love you too, Mr. Michael Thomson, father of my future daughter." Outside their window, the city lights twinkled like stars, each one representing a life being lived, dreams being pursued, hearts being open to new possibilities. In 2 weeks, they would exchange vows in their garden, surrounded by family and friends who had watched their unlikely love story unfold. But the real wedding had already happened, in quiet moments of shared understanding, in Lucy's laughter filling rooms that had been silent too long, in the gradual building of trust and commitment that had transformed 3 separate people into one unbreakable family. The morning sun streamed through the penthouse windows as Rebecca woke up to the sound of excited voices from the kitchen. Today was their wedding day, and Lucy had apparently decided that traditional wedding breakfast was essential to the success of the ceremony. "Rebecca," Lucy called from down the hall. "You have to eat special wedding pancakes for good luck." Rebecca smiled, pulling on her robe. 6 months ago, she couldn't have imagined this life, waking up in a beautiful home, surrounded by love, preparing to marry the man of her dreams and officially become mother to the most wonderful child in the world. In the kitchen, she found Michael and Lucy working together to create heart-shaped pancakes, their faces flour-dusted and happy. "Good morning, beautiful," Michael said, kissing her cheek. "Sleep well." "Better than I have in years," Rebecca replied honestly. "Though I did have the strangest dream that I was marrying a handsome billionaire and adopting a brilliant little girl." "That's not a dream, silly," Lucy giggled. "That's today." The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Rebecca's matron of honor, Dr. Lisa Park, arrived with a team of stylists who had insisted on doing her hair and makeup. Michael disappeared with his best man, James Chin, for mysterious groom preparations that seemed to involve a lot of nervous pacing. Lucy appointed herself wedding coordinator, checking details against her carefully prepared lists and directing various vendors with the authority of someone far older than 9. "The flowers are perfect," she announced, examining the arrangements that had been delivered. "The cake looks exactly like the picture I drew. And I made sure the robot is positioned where everyone can see it." Rebecca looked out at the garden, transformed into a wedding venue with white chairs arranged in neat rows, an archway covered in flowers, and yes, Lucy's first robot project sitting prominently near the altar as an honored guest. "Lucy," Rebecca said, kneeling down to the girl's eye level, "I have something for you." She handed Lucy a small wrapped box. Inside was a delicate necklace with a pendant shaped like a heart, engraved with the words, "Forever Daughter." "It's beautiful," Lucy breathed, touching the pendant gently. "But what does forever daughter mean?" "It means that today isn't just about Daddy and me getting married. It's about all three of us becoming a forever family. You're not just getting a stepmother, you're getting a mom who chooses to love you every single day." Lucy's eyes filled with happy tears. "And you're getting a daughter who will love you forever and ever." They hugged tightly, both overcome with emotion at the magnitude of what they were creating together. An hour before the ceremony, Rebecca stood in her bedroom, looking at herself in the full-length mirror. The wedding dress was simple but elegant, ivory silk with delicate lace details, chosen more for comfort than drama. She wanted to look beautiful, but more importantly, she wanted to look like herself. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Michael appeared in the doorway, looking devastatingly handsome in his dark suit. Traditional rules about not seeing the bride before the ceremony seemed less important than sharing this moment together. "You look incredible," he said softly. "So do you? Ready for this?" "I've been ready since the day you solved our impossible problem and changed our lives forever." Rebecca took his hands. "Michael, I need you to know something. Before I met you and Lucy, I thought my life was over. I had lost everything that defined me and I couldn't see a way forward. You both saved me not just professionally but emotionally and spiritually. You gave me purpose and love and a reason to believe in tomorrow." "You saved us too," Michael replied. "Lucy was disappearing into her grief, and I was so focused on trying to fix her that I forgot how to just love her. You taught us both that healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means growing around the pain until joy becomes possible again. Are you ready to make this official?" "More than ready. Let's go get married." The garden was filled with everyone who mattered to them, colleagues from Thomson Technologies, Lucy's teacher and school friends, neighbors who had become friends, and even Dr. Morrison, Lucy's therapist, who had watched her transformation with professional amazement and personal joy. Rebecca walked down the aisle alone, having chosen to give herself away rather than being handed from one person to another. This marriage was her choice, her joy, her new beginning. Lucy stood beside Michael at the altar, holding the rings and beaming with pride. She had insisted on being part of the ceremony rather than just watching from the audience. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, "we are gathered here today not just to witness the marriage of Michael and Rebecca, but to celebrate the creation of a family built on love, choice, and commitment." The vows they had written were personal and heartfelt. Michael spoke about finding unexpected love and second chances. Rebecca talked about discovering that home isn't a place but the people who choose to love you through joy and sorrow. But it was Lucy's part in the ceremony that brought tears to every eye in the garden. "I want to say something too," she announced, stepping forward with a piece of paper covered in her careful handwriting. "Rebecca, you came into our lives when we were sad and broken. You didn't try to fix us or make us forget Mommy. Instead, you loved us exactly as we were and helped us remember how to be happy again." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "You taught me that it's okay to have complicated feelings, that being smart is something to be proud of, and that families can be made in lots of different ways. Today you're becoming my mom, but you've been my family since the day you showed me that first programming book." She looked directly at Rebecca. "I promise to be the best daughter I can be, to keep learning and growing, and to love you forever and always." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden as Rebecca knelt down to hug Lucy tightly. "And I promise to be the best mom I can be," Rebecca whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "To support your dreams, celebrate your victories, and love you unconditionally for the rest of my life." The ring exchange was simple but meaningful. As Michael slipped the wedding band onto Rebecca's finger, she felt the final piece of her new life clicking into place. "By the power vested in me," the officiant announced, "I now pronounce you husband and wife, and officially welcome Lucy into this new family unit. Michael, you may kiss your bride." The kiss was gentle, sweet, and full of promise. As they broke apart, Lucy threw her arms around both of them, creating their first official group hug as a married family. The reception was everything Lucy had planned, elegant but joyful, formal but warm. Rebecca found herself surrounded by congratulations and good wishes from people who had become genuine friends over the past months. "I have to say," Patricia Hughes commented during dinner, "this is the most successful workplace romance I've ever witnessed. You two have increased productivity, revolutionized our technology, and created a beautiful family. The board is very pleased." As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, the three of them found themselves alone in the garden, still decorated with flowers and twinkling lights. "So," Michael said, pulling both his wife and daughter close, How does it feel to be Mrs. Thompson, an official Thompson family member? It feels like coming home, Rebecca replied. Like everything I went through before was just preparing me for this moment. I'm glad you're officially my mom now, Lucy said sleepily, leaning against Rebecca's side. Even though you felt like my mom for a long time. And you felt like my daughter from the moment I met you, Rebecca replied, stroking Lucy's hair. As they sat together under the stars, Rebecca reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, she had been homeless and hopeless, sitting outside a convention center watching other people live the life she had lost. Tonight, she was married to the love of her life, mother to an extraordinary child, and leading revolutionary work in artificial intelligence. But more than the external changes, she had discovered something she hadn't known was missing: the deep satisfaction of being loved for exactly who she was, complicated feelings and all. What are you thinking about? Michael asked softly. I'm thinking about the conversation that started all this, Rebecca replied. You were on the phone, frustrated about the infinite loop problem in emotional processing. If I hadn't overheard that conversation. If you hadn't been brave enough to speak up, Michael corrected. If you hadn't been open enough to listen to a homeless woman with a crazy idea. If I hadn't been desperate enough to try anything, he laughed. The point is, Rebecca continued, all of those circumstances had to align perfectly for us to find each other. Your daughter needed healing, I needed purpose, and you needed both of us to remember what family could feel like. Lucy stirred in her arms. Are we going to live happily ever after now? We're going to live, Rebecca said carefully. Happily, sadly, angrily, joyfully, all the emotions that make life real and meaningful. And we're going to do it together. That sounds perfect, Lucy murmured, completely content. As Michael carried their sleepy daughter inside and Rebecca gathered the remnants of their wedding celebration, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the unexpected turns that had brought them together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: the expansion of her research division, Lucy's continued growth and development, the daily negotiations of blended family life. But tonight, surrounded by evidence of love and commitment and new beginnings, Rebecca knew they could handle whatever came next. They were a family now, officially, legally, and most importantly, completely. And for the first time in her life, Rebecca understood what forever really meant.